I forgot. Okay. Today's lecture is about the overall petroleum industry structures, and this presentation is going to be helpful for you when you look for jobs and when you try to understand how the oil industry works overall. The oil industry actually mainly is divided into three main sections. We call them upstream section, midstream section, and downstream section. We as energy engineers or petroleum engineers, we work here mainly in upstream section. Apart from these three sectors, the sections that we divide in oil and gas, basically they are classified through the American Petroleum Institute. And after these three sectors, we have different type of companies that exist in all over the world. We have international oil companies, they work nationally plus as well as international locations. We have national oil companies, then we have operators, or we call them exploration and production companies. And then we have the service companies, they provide lots of services. So we look into each and every section and see how it works. Okay, and in oil industry, we have basically four sections. First, we explore the oil and gas reserves. Okay, in oil exploration process, we have geologists, we have geophysics, we have reservoir engineers, production engineers, and drilling engineers, all as a team to do the exploration and drilling process. Once they explore, they drill the well, it goes to the production. These production engineers, they basically manage the production engineering, production and produce oil and gas as much as possible, and then send it to the refinery for processing. After it goes to the refinery, we can send through this to the marketing to these oil marketing companies like this ExxonMobil, and there are a lot of local companies here in Kurdistan also. You see that are in distribution and marketing sides. Now my question to the students: how can we send natural gas to the refinery? This is a question. How can we send a natural gas to the refinery?
Well, we could use pipe or trucks.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? I want to hear some more.
So do you mean on land or on
land?
Sea?
Both.
Well, pipe works.
Pipelines.
Okay. First of all, the natural gas is not sent to the refinery. Only the oil is sent to the refinery. Natural gas is sent to the gas processing plant. Okay. So there's the difference between oil and gas. Only oil is sent to the refinery. Gas is sent, either they burn it if they don't have processing, or they send it to the processing facility. Got the idea? Because gas is different process and oil is different process. So oil is only sent to the refinery to get the products, but gas, no. Gas, we flare it. In Kurdistan, we mostly burn it in the air. And but if we have the gas processing plant, we send it to the processing, and then we send it through the pipes, as you said, but through the gas processing plant, not to the refinery. Gas is never sent to the refinery. Okay, so we have four different kind of companies here: exploration, production, refining, and marketing. And it's quite complicated because most of the world supply, okay, are controlled by the state agencies and not by the private corporation. So we do not have so many private companies. Basically, all the national companies, they control the oil and gas. Look at, for example, the Saudi oil. Saudi oil is the world's largest oil reserves, are controlled by the Saudi Aramco. It's the top company. If you look at, okay, Malaysia, they have a national oil company, Petronas. Okay, they are the top people there. If you look at the Brazil, they have Petrobras, again, national oil company. If you look at here in Iraq, again, you have your national company, which is main company here. If you look at Iran, again, Iranian company is the top one, national one again. So mostly the domination of companies here we have is the national oil companies. They are dominating most of the production all over the world. So well over half of the total world oil reserves are controlled by state agencies. So and most of the oil production is mostly controlled by the state agencies like Ministry of Oil. Mostly. Also in Iraq, if you look, you can consider Car Group as national company or Kavan as national company because they again belong to the government people. here in Iraq. Now, let's look at the chain, what we do again, and what kind of companies. Well, in oil and gas industry, first job is to do seismic exploration. So we have lots of seismic companies that do the seismic surveys for us. Then with the seismic people, we have geologists, as we say, they estimate the structure and the types of formation and so on. Then after the seismic survey, they tell us, okay, please go ahead and drill that area. So then we have civil engineers, they go and clear the land, clear everything, prepare the site, and then we go for the drilling the well. Third step is to drill the well. We drill the well. Then after that, we extract the oil, we produce it. After the production, we transport it and then we market it. So the value chain, the companies, you can find lots of exploration companies. You can find drilling and production companies. You can find lots of shipping and transportation companies. In Kurdistan, you can find typical trucks, a lot of trucks that can transport crude oil from one place to another place. Then you can find lots of refineries, as you have here in Bazian. Then you have lots of storage companies, they manage those storage tanks and so on. Then we have distributors like these local companies, they sell to the local market and so on. So this is all the value chain. So there are a number of companies involved in all the process. So we can divide the oil companies, E&P companies, exploration and production segments. These companies, actually what they do, they take the license from the government to operate or find the oil and gas, explore the oil and gas. There are even right now, Iraq is issuing tenders. I saw the news yesterday that they are issuing lots of new tenders in all over Iraq for new oil and gas zones. So many companies will participate. They will take the license from them, exploration, they will do the drilling, and then they produce and make a lot of profit out of it. Then we have refinery. The oil that is produced is then sent back to the refinery and so on. Then later on, there are distribution companies who send to the local. I think most of the oil, benzene, you call it, I call it gasoline, but people here call it benzene. It comes from Iran because their refineries are more, and to cover the demand, I think a part of the gasoline comes from the Iran. So API divides the petroleum industry into the 5 sectors. As I said, we have upstream. We, as energy engineers, petroleum engineers, civil engineers, we work mainly with the exploration and production. Exploration, development, production of crude oil. Midstream sector involved in the refinery sections, refinery, processing, and so on. Downstream sector is talk about the transportation and marketing. These are the 3 sections. Then we have different kind of companies, pipeline sectors, just to transport the oil from one place to another place. We call them the pipeline. And then we have also service companies. Let's say they provide logging surveys, they provide testing surveys, they provide beds, they provide drill pipes, drill collars, they provide, we can say that, managed pressure drilling services, they provide enhanced oil recovery surveys, they provide fracking surveys, they provide acidizing surveys. So there are so many companies that are working in services sector. Many are working on entity, non-destructive testing. Many are working as for the storage tanks, Christmas trees, pipes, and so many valves, devices. So many sectors there are in services and supply sectors. Then the companies, we have national oil companies, which contribute more than half of the production is controlled by those national oil companies. Then we have international oil companies like Chevron and many other companies right now. Then we have operator companies. Operator companies, those who operate and produce oil and gas, and as we discussed, the service companies. Different classification, different mines, and we talk about them, so on. So what are the super major companies we have around? We have Chevron, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, Shell, Eni, Total. These are the top companies. And they work in all sectors, upstream, midstream, downstream. You can see them in production, you can see them in drilling, you can see them in transporting, you can see them refining, you can see them in everywhere. So we call them the super major oil companies. Here we have. Then we have independent companies, we talk about it. So as I said, the petroleum industry structure, we divide the sector into upstream, midstream, and downstream. On the other side, we have exploration and production, we refine the oil and we distribute it, and so on. So now we look at it. What is upstream? What is midstream? And what is downstream? Okay. In the upstream sector, we We explore it, geologists, geophysics, and petroleum engineers, energy engineers. They are mostly uh, in the upstream sector. Okay. In the midstream sector, we talk about the processing and refinery. Refinery, you refine it, you process it, you prepare the products, okay, and then in downstream, you send it uh, to the customer through the transportation. That's the downstream sector that we work. So downstream sector mainly is oil tankers, refiners, retailers, consumers that sell the product. So final sale area, sale and marketing thing is done by the downstream people, and so on. And what are the main products that we obtain? We obtain the gasoline, that you call it here benzene. We have jet fuel for aeroplanes. We have residuals that are used in civil engineering or as engine oil. And we have some distillates that are sent back to the gasoline again. And as I said, the refinery, the natural gas do not go to the refinery. Either we flare it or we definitely process it and sell it. Again, the same diagram, explore it, we explore, field, then midstream is refining, processing, and this is the sending through the marketing and sales department and so on. Okay. Now, as I say, E&P companies collecting data, they drill the wells, they do lots of surveys. As I said, they have S&P waves, they look at the geology, formations, and so on. So they decide how many wells needs to be drilled and how many production they are going to get. So basically, the upstream sector is divided into three main parts: exploration, they explore, then after that they develop, means they drill number of wells, and they produce. So exploration, development, production, all is upstream. These are three sectors. So you can find many companies that deals with only exploration. For example, in Chinese company, which is very famous, is CNLC, China National Logging Company. CNLC is a very famous one. Development, uh, they do develop, they do drill lots of wells, and then they produce it, so on. We have lots of companies, international companies that are uh, working all over the world. So some of the company names are here. We have BG Group, we have BHP Billiton, we have ConocoPhillips, we have Chevron, we have ENI, ExxonMobil, Hess Limited, Marathon Oil, Total, and Tullow. Big giants, they work all over the world. They go everywhere. They take the license, they drill, they produce lots of oil, and definitely they have agreements with the government. They take some of the money back home, they refine and sell it in the same country. So these are the many international oil companies that they exist all over the world. In Iraq also, in Basra, you can find lots of international companies. They are working. Also in Kirkuk right now with British Petroleum probably. So how these upstream company works, what they do? Well, first of all, they negotiate with the government. They get the license. This is the first thing. So once they have the license, they send their engineers or scientists. They look at their geology, seismic, and they prepare geological models. They prospect. So, and these geology and seismic evolution, they tell them, okay, now let's go and explore and drill the wells. So then they explore, then they produce, and so on. So this licensing part is important, and they spend a lot of money to get the license, legally, illegally, but they spend a lot of money to get those licenses, and then they go for their seismic surveys and so on. Then they go for exploration, drilling. Both it applies for onshore and offshore codes. Both process goes through the same one. Okay, so in exploration, basically we look for how many regions. For example, Halabja region, they go for region. Then the government actually divide those in those region blocks. Okay, so mainly we can say, okay, in Halabja region or in Circular region, but in those regions, the government or Ministry of Oil divide them into the small blocks. Okay, this block goes to this company, this block goes to Genel, this block goes to the car. So they go and explore, and they send their engineers to the seismic surveys, and they find out the places to drill those wells. Also in Halabja, there is oil, but the Gazprom, they didn't go there because they say there's a rural area and people are really dangerous there and they cannot proceed. People are hitting them there. So that's a problem in Kurdistan region, especially the law and order situation in the remote areas for those oil companies and their international. So they are very careful in their activities here in Kurdistan. So basically they look for the regions. Yes, any question?
Sir, I had a question.
Yes.
do they get the license from the country that they came from or the country that they're working on?
Country they are working on. For example, in Kurdistan, the Ministry of Oil of Kurdistan, they have to give the license. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is a website online of Ministry of Oil in Kurdistan. There you can apply for it. Okay, but they don't give. I mean, there are actually backdoor channels. Backdoor. There's a lot of diplomacy going on, negotiations going on behind with the government officials and with the company officials. For example, if you remember last year, you have heard or not, the Rosneft invested $1.4 billion in Kurdistan. If you remember, there was news last year or 2 years ago. So Rosneft basically did the contract that, okay, I will develop the natural gas of the Kurdistan region and send this gas to the Europe. So that was a deal with Rosneft, but later on the recession came and things got slow, but still the contract is there. They gave the Kurdistan $1.4 billion. It was like 2 years ago, this story. You can find on Google News.
Yes.
Okay, so in the development section, where, how, in detail, how much are the reserves, how many facilities you are going to put, will it be profitable or not? For example, company is ready to invest $1 billion in the region. $1 billion for an investment is a big amount. So investing, how much they can take this out from this $1 billion. So this, they have to do a proper studies, and there are so many engineers, scientists, they are working behind this development phase. And as I told you, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what will happen. So engineers have to be very careful in putting something on paper, and they're saying that, okay, this is possible. So it's a very risky business, but at the same time, they definitely they hire very smart people, very experienced people, those who manage that. These two phases are very risky, but when you have a production, then they enjoy it. Okay, how to, they take the oil, then they find their customers and they sell them. For example, the oil from here was going to Bazian refinery or other refineries or Iranian refineries is going on. The production from here is going to many countries, other countries from here also. Let's say from Turkey, it is going ahead to other countries. So once you have the production, having production is one thing, but selling it is also another thing. For example, right now, because of the recession or because of this COVID-19, the oil demand has reduced overall. So now where to sell that oil? Okay, you have the oil, but where you can sell it? This is the problem. So for example, you are capable to produce 1 million barrels per day, but where you are going to sell that one? You need to find the customers for it, and you need to find the route, how you are going to send it. So selling, marketing is also a very important part. It's not only to explore and to produce. You need to sell that oil also, the product you are making. Companies typically look for low cost, low operating cost per company, target low operating cost areas where they can have very easy and cheap oil. This is what they want. And in Kurdistan, they can find a cheap oil. That's why you will see if the oil price go up around 70, 80, you will see many companies will come back. But as I see yesterday or day before yesterday, somebody was talking $25 per barrel. So I don't know what is coming in the future, but right now I think it's less than 40 as per yesterday I saw the price of crude oil. As you saw in 2014-15, where there was a big boom, so lots of oil companies came, everybody was happy, everybody was making a lot of money, and then suddenly the recession happens and things happen, and many companies left, and security become unstable. So we are waiting that in Kurdistan this will come back again one day. Lots of oil companies and so on. It all depends on if the oil price goes to 70 to $80 per barrel, then you will find lots of jobs again. I remember many people told me in 2013-14, you just had to have a degree of petroleum engineering or energy engineering, and they would have hired you. That was the situation. There were no people to be hired when those companies came. That was the situation. So let's pray that if this same comes back again or not. When we go for drilling, the drilling can be very expensive, $200 million, a lot for even a major oil company such as ExxonMobil or Shell. So selecting the location of the well is very important. We don't want to be unlucky, and this happens. I tell you example from one country, what happens that the corruption in this case. For example, now there are drilling engineers, drilling company. What they did actually, they drilled one well, okay, and they reached the target zone. They know there's oil, but in the report they said, okay, there is no oil. Okay, what happens after 1 year? The another international company jumps in, drill in the same place, and find the reservoir. It shows that there's a huge level of corruption can be involved in the drilling process, because these national companies, they sell this license and these things to the international oil company, and then with the maybe some $1 million, and then the international oil company took the same license, drilled in the same place, and they got the oil. So this happened, right? I know one of the cases like this. Many companies, many other things happen. Many oil companies, they hire the consultant services. Let's say they hire a consultant from Dubai. So what they do, there's a lot of commission-based system in that case. So for example, the cost of the one job is, let's say, you can say $100,000. So out of $100,000, 10% is the engineers are taking, just because they give them the contract. So this is happening. It's quite common, not only here, but many other countries I have heard from the people that these things are common. But it should not be the way corruption is bad. Many times the oil and gas occur at depths, several depths. We are not limited to drilling straight holes. Yeah, definitely we go for vertical, horizontal, and lateral wells, and so on. Anyway, we have to look for geologists, geophysics recommendations, reservoir engineers recommendation, and so on. But I would like to highlight one more point, that, as I said, we have two different kind of wells when we drill in the same reservoir. We drill the first well, then we drill the second well, and then we drill the third well. The first well, we call it an exploration well, while the second well we drill we call it a production well. In the exploration well, we don't know what is happening. So the exploration well is drilled under the recommendation of geologists and geophysics. The exploration well is drilled by the recommendation of geologists and geophysics. They tell us that where to drill. But the second well, production well, let's say you are going to drill 5 wells, the production wells. These locations, production locations, are done mainly by reservoir engineers. The reservoir engineer selects the location of those wells. So the first well is decided by geologists, mainly, or geophysics people. The second well or third well or fourth well is decided by the reservoir and production engineers. They decide what they need to do. In the midstream section, we said that they gather, they refine, and then transportation is usually the downstream one. But in the midstream section, basically we look for refinery processes, and refinery and storage. We just do the refining and storage process in the midstream section. Yes.
Doctor, I have a question, please.
Yes. Yes.
Doctor, you are going too fast and you're passing many information. Should we memorize all of the steps, or we should just get to know them?
Well, I will generally ask, please mention what is upstream section, midstream section, and now downstream section. Okay, the question types will be like this. You got my point?
Yes, doctor.
Do we have to memorize all the details?
Not all the details, but specific details, yes.
Like
Okay.
what? The special details. Like
okay, what are the classification, API classification, American Petroleum Institute classification for oil and gas sectors? So you can mention there's upstream sector, midstream sector, and downstream sector. The question can be, okay, question can be, okay, what are the activities of upstream sectors? Okay, so you can mention in the upstream sector the exploration activity, the production activity, and development activity. Okay, the question can be, okay, what are the exploration activities? Exploration activities mainly is to find the oil using the seismic surveys, using the seismic surveys, and with the help of geologists, we make the geological maps and so on. What is the development phase? We put number of wells to produce, for drilling phase, we drill number of wells. So simple, to the point definitions, to the point things. You don't have to memorize word by word. I don't like it. I would personally always like, you can define in your own words. Okay. So this presentation, it gives you a general idea. It gives you the knowledge, but it's better you write with your own words. You don't need to memorize everything. And I don't like if you write from A to Z directly, all of it. Okay. And mostly you will see a lot of stuff on my slides. So basically I will give actually questions in the final exam. I will already take out the question out of this presentation and give you. Okay, because the slides are a lot, the text is a lot, so I will prepare the questions for you.
So is that enough to study on the slides only, or do we have to study on the book as well?
No, is enough. It's enough
Okay.
from the lectures and slides.
Okay.
Books is for your personal one.
Okay.
Yes, please. Okay. The question, for example, comes, okay, name 5 top international oil companies. Or any 5 international companies. Okay, name any 5 national or national companies. You can write it, as I said, the Saudi Aramco and so on. So the question will be like this. And I will definitely find out the question and give it to you from them. I will prepare the, the top questions out of it and give it to you. Not all questions will come, but partly you will see them somewhere. Okay. And for example, I can ask you, what is the business cycle of upstream? So business cycle definitely licensing, prospecting, exploration, and production and downstream and so on. So this you can define like this. Definitely there will be presentations will be like this, because as per my experience, most of the students, they don't like to go back to the books. They don't like to study from the books, and they don't do it actually. They like to stick with the lectures. So we design the lectures with like a textbook. We have to put a lot of text into it. Usually when we go for professional lectures, we don't put that much text. But since the students, want everything written on the lectures, otherwise they don't want it. So we have to prepare the presentation like this. How is the other students' lecture experience? Do they give you exam from the slides, or they ask you to go back to books?
From previous class, it was mostly slides.
Slides, yeah. And other lectures in general?
Same
Like,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so
They all
mostly.
put the slides.
Okay, now the question is, okay, if I reduce these slides and put pictorial and images, can you go back to the books and prepare the exams from the books?
Oh no,
No, it's
please
hard.
no.
Yeah, it's hard. How about the others? I want to hear other students also at the same time.
Well, of course, no.
No. Okay. So that's why the presentations are like that, because
It takes too much time to go back to the book and find it.
yeah.
Exactly.
But as I told you before, after you graduate, no more lectures. You have to only refer to the books.
Yeah, sure.
But mostly these things are taken from the books, so you will see them again. I personally don't go back to the books. I just stick to the lectures, and I put every information on the lectures. Main information. Mostly you will find 80 to 90% in my lectures. Something is left behind, which is you will use when you graduate later on. So we have as I said, we have the upstream plants. We gather, we then process. Fractionation is the refinery. We refine it, and natural gas we send it to the process it and send it to the companies and customers, distribution companies. After the fractionation, the refinery, the oil products, which are the ethane, propane, butane, and so on, we send to the distribution companies and they are sent further ahead. This is the midstream section. We have, in the midstream, we have 3 different sectors here. We have dry gas, associated gas, and wet rich gas. Okay, now what is dry gas and what is associated gas or wet rich gas? Anyone has any idea about it? Anyone has any idea? Okay, let me tell you what is dry. Dry gas is the gas which is mainly a gas. It has no water. It has no liquid hydrocarbon mixed with it. Okay, it has only a dry gas. Let's say methane is methane. That's it. That's why the dry gas do not go through any process. Dry gas is directly through the dry gas, through the pipeline transport and so on, because it has no impurity, no liquid and so on. Then we have the associated gas. Associated gas has a water vapors with it. This water has to be removed before we send it to the customer. So what we do, this associated gas goes to the gas processing, not to the refinery, but to the gas processing. We process it and we remove the ethane gas, propane, butane, and we send them to the one. Then we have the rich gas. Rich gas is the gas which has heavier hydrocarbon. Not the water. I'm not talking about water here in rich gas. I'm talking about the, let's say, pentane, hexane, heptane, and octane. The C4, C5, C6, and C7, heavier hydrocarbons. So these have the liquid hydrocarbons, from which you can obtain the gasoline and so on. So we call them the natural gas liquids that we obtain them, and then we send them. So this is the dry gas, has no liquid, either the water or any other liquid hydrocarbon. Associated gas is the one which has water, but nothing else. Rich gas is the one which has the richer heavy hydrocarbon, which are expensive, and if we separate them, we can make money out of it. So in the associated gas, we remove the water and we send it, you can send back to the transportation. Wet gas, again, rich gas, you remove the top component, ethane, propane, butane, and again, the gas is sent back to the transportation and so on. In the downstream sector, we have mainly the transportation and oil companies that store and transport and send it to these oil companies where they can market it and so on. These are the previous old methods of oil. This is the distribution, and this is the supply where you can get the crude oil and so on. Here also you can find many traders who can deal with the crude oil. In the downstream sector, we have again the extraction, resource extraction. Key driver is how much money you can spend on it. Okay, high capital, you need to invest a lot of money in upstream sector. Often highly taxed. Government takes a lot of money, let's say 30%, 40%. So you have to have lots of taxes here, and you have to invest a lot of money. As you know, that one well costs you millions of dollars. So if you, even the exploration sector asks you to invest millions of dollars. So it's very risky. At the same time, it is very risky, the upstream section, and it's very uncertain. This section is not risky at all. You know that you are going to get oil with this composition. You just have to refine it and sell it. So also it needs money to invest, okay, high capital, because you need to put the refinery. Refinery costs millions of dollars, $50 million, $60 million. So it's an expensive job, refinery, but it is certain. It shows, because once you have oil in hand, you can, refine it and then sell it. That's it. So that's why you see a lot of illegal refineries, even around Suleimania. There are a lot of refineries here around, and they just have one main tower and they refine it and then they sell it. This is going on in Suleimania a lot. Distribution, definitely, again, it's a low capital. You don't need a lot of money. I'm talking about in comparison with the upstream or refining. If you have a decent money, you can open your fuel pump and get it out. Also, you can have your tanker companies, take the oil from those refinery process, send it to distribution. So these are the three sectors that work of the refined products. You can do the retail, wholesale, bulk sale. These are the things that we do in the downstream sector. But as an engineer, we are not really involved in these things. These are the business things that usually businessmen are involved. We are mostly dealing with managing those reserves, producing those, processing those, and consumption is not our main area, and so on. Then in the refinery, we have in Suleimania, what they are doing, the people, they have installed their own refineries where they have this distillation tower. What is happening inside the distillation tower, they just heat it. Okay, based on the boiling point, all the products, they get separated. So the process, it's a chemical process. What they do, they just heat the distillation tower around 400 to 500 degrees centigrade. And then they, based on the different boiling point ranges, all the products are separated and they just store it and then they sell it. They refine it bit there, further they filter it and then they sell it further to the companies, this is quite common here in Kurdistan. So what is actually oil refining? Refining means from the crude oil we obtain the useful products like gasoline, which you call it benzene, we get diesel, we get asphalt, we get kerosene, and we get the LPG. Kerosene is heavily used here. LPG here we use at home for cooking purpose, liquefied petroleum gas. Mostly it is pentane and hexane. Pentane is mostly is LPG, we call it. Heating oil and kerosene, we get it for summer, for winter, and we use it for heating purpose also. Asphalt we use for making the roads here. Gasoline and diesel we use in cars and tractors and trucks and we have jet fuel also. So basically, as I said, this goes through the different kinds of boiling point ranges in the distillation tower, and we will talk about it in the final lecture and so on. So here we have the distillates, gas oils, residuals, naphtha, and so on. LPG, gas oil. These are the main products that we get in oil and gas, and all are saleable. Okay. And cost of these refineries are actually not that high. If you have $100,000, you can have a refinery. But again, it is not the government license. Government do not allow it for now because of the environmental hazard. Now, if you have the 1 barrel of oil, now the question comes here is if you have 1 barrel of oil, how many products you can get out of it? Well, 47% you can make gasoline out of it. 23% diesel you can get out of it, and rest 18 liquefied and so on. So what the oil companies do, the refinery here, what they do, they put the distillation tower and they buy the crude oil and they make these products. Okay. For example, 23 and 47 is around 70%. They can get the saleable products for the local market. So they do this. Okay, they make the 70%. For example, if they buy, let's say 100 barrels. So 100 barrels, you can do the cost estimation. 100 barrels, let's say they are buying in $30. Okay, so it becomes $3,000 per day. So 100 barrel out of $3,000, 70% they can obtain these two products, and then they sell them according to the market price. So it's quite lucrative. It can make good money out of it, and so on. So in the crude oil types, we have 3 different types of crude oils. We have light crude oil, and we have medium crude oil, and we have heavy crude oil. The light crude oil has an API gravity, or you can say density, is above 34. So if API is above 34, it's called light. And if the API is between 24 to 34, is medium. And if we have heavy oil, it is less than 24, or you can say less than 20 even sometimes. Okay. Light sweet is the most expensive and heavy is the most cheapest. Now the question to you guys, why the light is very expensive and heavy crude oil is less expensive? What is the difference? Yes, anyone please can answer me why the light oil is expensive and heavy oil is not expensive, it's cheaper. Yes.
I guess this is because of the availability of both of them.
Anyone else?
I think it's harder to take out the heavy sour, and it's useless, right? It's not that much useful as it's light sweet.
Okay. Partly, yes, you're right, partly. But there are more answers.
You could take out.
So the light one can be easily transported.
Yes, definitely. That's the right answer. Light oil is easy to transport, easy to process, easy to refine. Okay. That's why its demand is more. That's why it is more expensive. And you can get a lot of light oil, means a lot of gasoline out of it, or benzene out of it, or diesel out of it. So light oil actually is easy to transport, easy to process. Heavy oil even cannot move sometimes. Even if you put it like, in a glass and try to take it out, you cannot, because it's very heavy. It's very hard to flow. So flow of this heavy oil is very hard. So it is, if the flow is hard, then means its refining is also very hard. So overall, this heavy oil is very hard to. That's why we prefer the light sweet oil. And mostly, you can see here 32% is gasoline in the light oil, 15% is gasoline in the heavy oil. So this one has more valuable product, easy to transport, easy to get, and so on. Then there is another statement here. It says that the sweet and sour. You see here we have written word light sweet oil, sour oil. So sour oil and sweet oil is all depend on the sulfur content. What are the sulfur contents? So sulfur contains in this case, for example, is talk about if the sulfur content is less than 1%, we call it a sweet. If the sulfur content is more than 1%, we call it a sour oil. And there was one sour oil available in Kurdistan. The sulfur content was 4.7. One of my previous students, he wanted to import it here and sell it. So, and he was getting cheaper. But the question was how he can remove the sulfur. He needs to put the plant that can remove the sulfur, because sulfur is very toxic and is not environmental friendly, it's hazardous. So you cannot sell this oil if it has sulfur content. It has to be removed, the sulfur. So sour oil is actually cheaper. If you find the sour oil, is cheap than the sweet oil. What we prefer, light sweet oil. That's the main idea of the crude oil.
Sarah, I had a question.
Yes, please.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Yeah. The medium sour has less demand, more demands than the light sweet. Why is that less expensive than the sweet one?
It's the reason is because it's less expensive. Okay, and you can easily get these kind of one. 24 to 34 still is considered the light crude oil.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly what we define, in my point of view, there is nothing called the medium crude oil. There's either light or there is either heavy. What is light? 20 to 35, 37, the one which we use as a standard is WTI and Brent. Their API is 37. Okay. So somewhere between 20 to 35 is quite reasonable and very in much high demand. But something which is less than 20, like Canadian oil, is in a very if you remember the last month or few months ago, the Canadian oil heavy oil become in minus. It was minus $10 per barrel, if you follow it news or not. So it was because they couldn't sell that oil. Nobody was ready to buy that one. So the price went minus. They were giving you $10 to take that oil. I mean, it's not really practically possible, but in paper, in website, it was like this. The price was minus $10. The day when the prices collapsed. It was like 2 months ago, I think. So light and medium, they are always in high demand. They're easy to process. That's why they're expensive.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, what kind of reservoir produces light sweet or heavy sour?
Yes.
Let's say it's due to the temperature, pressure, or what?
Well, every reservoir is different. We cannot predict about it. Okay, it's not related with any characters. This is something natural by God. Some are light, some are medium sour, some are heavy. So it's something by God. We don't know what is the background and why it is so. Okay, but what we do that when we drill the well, we take out that oil and we send it to the laboratory to check what is it. Is it light? Is it medium? It is heavy? Then we announce it. That's it. We don't know why this is this. There's a very famous saying in reservoir engineering. Reservoir is always right. That's it. So we don't know whatever your data is reliable or not, whatever you are doing in lab is not. But reservoir is always right, and reservoir is natural. The reservoir is something built by billions of years ago. So we don't know why it is that. But as long as it's there, that's it. In Kurdistan, we have light oil mostly. We have light sweet oil. Okay. And the price of, by the way, Iraqi oil overall is a bit higher than the WTI. If you go back to the oilprice.com, you can find all the prices of all the oils, light, medium, heavy. There's a list every moment, every second it is updated. So you can get from the oilprice.com. I can write the website for you. Oilprice.com. Can you see that? If not, I can write it here. This website, oilprice.com. Here you can find all the information about oil price. Okay, we go further. Don't worry for the text. Okay, I will definitely refine the the content for you for the exams. This is just to give you, the clear picture of it. So content for the exams is different than content for presenting. So keep that in your mind. So when it comes to the exam, we will talk about it, and we will do whatever is practical, possible, and feasible. We will not go for something which you cannot do it. And I am aware that you have other courses at the same time. So for the oil companies, we said that we have national oil companies, we have international oil companies, and we have operator companies and service companies. So these are the 4 different kind of companies that you will see. Also in Kurdistan, you can find national oil companies, international oil companies, operator and service companies. Okay, look at this international oil company. We have ExxonMobil, very famous, Royal Dutch from the Netherlands, ExxonMobil by US, BP, Amoco from London, Total is from Paris, Chevron, California, ConocoPhillips, Texas, US. On the other side, you have Saudi Aramco, National Iranian, National Iraqi, Petronas, Petrobras, all national companies. And they basically, but now these companies goes international. You can find ExxonMobil in many other companies. And right now, as you know, the Iraqi prime minister, he went to US, he signed some contracts with Chevron. So Chevron is coming here in Iraqi companies and they are going to produce oil also. They got some contracts there. And definitely the government officials are involved in the same size. So there are so many activities that these companies are doing. Most of them are also involved in downstream, in pipeline. So they have a lot of activities these international oil companies they have at the same time. Then we have the national oil companies, as I said. So let's look at some of the national oil companies. Saudi Aramco. These are their reserves, and these are their gas reserves. And Saudi Aramco, 12.5 million per barrels per day is their production. Highest. They are top. Right now, they are not more than America, but they are the second highest at current moment. This picture, this table is older than today. So today is probably the Saudi America is the top, second is the Saudi oil. So they are producing 12.5 million barrels per day. Imagine the output, imagine the size of the company. Multiply by today's price, you can see how much money they are making every day. Then National Iranian Company, again top. Qatar Petroleum, National Oil Company. INOC, Iraqi National Company. Okay, this is Venezuela. They have again their own company. Okay, they have ADNOC, very famous Abu Dhabi, ADNOC National Oil Company. Then they have the Kuwait Petroleum Company, Nigerian company, Libya has their own company. So most of the oil countries, top 10, if you look at, they have their own company and they usually follow them. But definitely they give blocks to the other company. It's not only their own company, but definitely other countries are also involved. For example, US is heavily involved, Chevron, and all these companies are heavily involved in many other regions, especially in Iraq. Here you can see Gazprom is also available in Pakistan. It's a Russian national company and it's their market value. BP, big company, ExxonMobil. BP is in Kirkuk right now. Chevron is coming here. PetroChina is the Chinese national. Dutch Royal Dutch is from UK. We have Total. So these are the Petrobras, Petroleum. This is the Brazilian one that I was talking about. And the ConocoPhillips from the US. So there are so many companies that are operating at the same point. These companies, as I said, are involved at all stages. Nowadays, they are involved. And right now, there was a debate in Khalifa University last year. Now, as you know, that the renewables are taking the places. And now, renewables, solar is getting cheaper and is more accessible by everyone. So what these oil companies should do? Oil price is dying, you know, these companies were supposed to be millions and billions of dollars by now, but these companies' revenues are dying now. They are not making that money that they were making 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So now what these companies are looking for is to diversify from the oil production to producing or selling the renewables. This is what they are thinking right now, or they are further thinking more to switch to the minerals. So many companies, these ones, are now looking for alternate options than selling the oil, because oil is going to be worthless in the next 10 years because the renewables are going to take the places. So that's what is coming. So that's what everyone needs to prepare, because as you know, more of the electric cars are coming on the roads. Many companies are going to ban the gasoline cars in next 10 years, including the China. In fact, right now, many cities in China, they have already blocked or stopped, banned the gasoline cars. So the more we are moving towards electric cars, electric automobiles, electric trucks, electric commercial things, the oil demand is going to decline, and which is coming very fast. And COVID already has destroyed every oil companies and the revenues of oil companies and oil-based economies also. So all those countries who are based on oil, they must diversify from the oil economy to the other economies, because the future of oil probably is not going to be safe in the safe hands. So as I said, we have the super major companies which deals with upstream, midstream, downstream, all of them. They produce, they refine, and they sell. So that's what is this is the Shell company. Shell is also involved in every process. They process LPG, they process LNG, they do refining, they do marketing, they have their trucks, they have their production, they do everything. They have their shipping. So Shell is one of the top-notch company. They do everything. And right now they're also diversifying. They're moving towards the renewables. That's why the role of energy engineers is going to be more than petroleum engineers, because you at least have some experience, you can work in renewables also. But petroleum engineers who are specializing in oil and gas, they probably will get hard chance to find the jobs in future. But for you, yes, you have some more options than the typical petroleum engineers. Then we have the service companies, top four, big four service companies we have. Very famous, Schlumberger, Halliburton, Weatherford, and Baker Hughes. These are the top four companies we have. The Christmas tree wellheads are provided by Cameron, very famous company, and this Varco, very